Okay, let's try again. Good morning, everybody. We had to get our hands together. There we go. Good morning, everybody. We are going to talk this morning about week 1. And so we'll talk about temperament. We had some other things we want to talk about.
Sorry about what happened.
Yeah, the tech stuff is weird because it worked yesterday, but Facebook is Facebook.
Yeah, because it seems to be working on the tablet, but
not
the phone, and I went and grabbed my tablet, and for some reason it insists on showing me upside down.
Yeah, that's really weird. Anyway, it's all good.
Yeah.
We'll use this one, and then we'll put this video up, and it'll all be good.
Okay.
So, what did you want to start talking about this morning?
Well, do we want to get into addressing any trouble that anyone's having with the technical end of things or getting on?
Well, I think we have everybody that's contacted us. We've gotten all sorted, and so the issues that we had were really pretty minor. But I think everybody that's contacted us, we're good.
Okay.
You gotta get your head closer to mine. You gotta look like you love me. So, and if you're listening to this and you're still having issues, and you just need to email us or send us a PM, and we'll get you sorted. But I don't think we're having any other tech issues. I do want to make sure that everybody is logging in and everybody's looking at the lessons on the site. There's podcasts there. There's there's other stuff there. So logging in and seeing that I think is important because the next lesson starts Monday. So I would work on temperament until Sunday, and then you're going to always be working on temperament. I mean, once you have this knowledge, it should just continue to deepen. It's not something that you should just sort of forget about. You should just hang on to it. It's something that we look at everything and everybody we come in contact with sort of with that lens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I bet that person is this. And
yes, totally. And it really helps you, helps me as a cleric have more empathy for people, because then I sort of know what I can go, okay, well, this seems like there may be a little bit unbalanced here. And, and it helps in dealing with people within your home and in dealing with other people outside your home. I find it just a fantastic lens to be able to see things through. And it's not like hard and fast. I mean, obviously there's going to be differences, and there's going to be reasons why people act outside of that, and we'll talk about that a little bit today, sort of imbalances. But so you're going to be continuing to work on temperament within yourself, within your household. Our stewardship as parents is to help balance our children. And so just because we're moving on to lesson 2 does not mean you should stop with lesson 1. You should just always sort of have lesson 1 in your back pocket. And before you get in a fight, go, oh, this is because, or he's uncomfortable, or she's really frustrated, and try to be looking at it that way. And sort of, because part of Thrive is helping you to resolve conflict before it begins, and to learn to talk to each other. And I get as a consultant with our homeschooling end, and so much of that ends up being working with personal stuff. I feel like one of the things that's really sad is when I hear, I had a knockdown drag out with my husband last night and over X, Y, and Z, and I go, I'm so sad. I know what that's like. I lived in an unhappy marriage where we fought constantly, and with my ex-husband, and that's not good for you, and it's not good for your kids. So even if you're in a place where you're both kind of hotheads and you both like to fight, I'm hoping that my prayer for you is that Thrive sort of helps you resolve some of that, being able to look at temperament and look at sort of your parenting and things like that. It will help you, and it will really help your kids. It helps your kids sort of be in a good place and smile. So
I get a little nervous about my life because that's a new thing for me.
It's new. I'm live all the time. Eric's like rushing all around. I'm just kind of chill. But and so I want you to really be thinking about those things as we go on. I also wanted to say really quick, for dads, that might be thinking your wife is really strange for being sort of on this Waldorf path, because this batch of beta testers all came from some Waldorf list that we posted to. So you're probably already thinking she's strange. And so I am going to just ask you to just stick with this. Thrive is not Waldorf. It has definitely elements of Waldorf within it, but there are elements that we have tweaked and that we have really worked to sort of harness for parents at home. And so don't be thinking, oh, this is just another one of those weird things. It's not weird. I promise it's not weird. So you had a few things you were going to say.
Well, one thing I am really grateful for about our understanding of the temperaments is I know that I lean towards the phlegmatic side, and she definitely leans towards the choleric side, and that is a recipe for there to be conflict if there isn't an understanding. And when I was working in outside of the home, if I had a choleric boss and they saw the way that I was doing things, they would get frustrated at me or worry that things aren't happening when things were, but they were happening in a way that
the cholerics often don't see.
Yeah, because like sometimes there's little, instead of one big pot on the stove, there's little pots everywhere, and then all of a sudden they all come together and make something, but that doesn't look like they're doing anything. And so if we didn't have the understanding of why I'm who I am and why she is who she is, I think there'd be times we really would not get along very well.
Oh, I totally, because the choleric can tend to be really impatient.
And bossy.
So if I don't see something happening, gosh, I could just yell at him. But because I love him so much, and we celebrate 11 years this year, because next week actually, because I love him so much, and he and I have such a deep, loving understanding, and because I was in a really unhealthy marriage for 13 years with my ex-husband, I decided I didn't want to have those patterns again. So much of what keeps us from fighting is because I work on me, and because I stop myself and I say, okay, wait a minute. He's really frustrating me right now. Why is he frustrating me right now? And then I ask, is this because of me and my temperament and I need to control everything? Or is he doing something that's really annoying? Because both could be possible. But because we love each other so much, there are things that we sort of step back. And because I know I do things that make him crazy. And so I think that when you're really looking at how you're working together in a marriage, you're looking at the fact that neither one of you is perfect. Both of you have major flaws. And if you think you don't, well, you're lying to yourself, because you're walking this earthly journey. You both have major flaws, and it's here. You're here to refine. And so, working on refining those things helps you have a happy marriage, and it helps you be happy with yourself. It helps you be like this, rock star parent. I'm just telling you. That doesn't mean we're awesome parents 100% of the time, but because we love each other and because we're on it together and we are, completely here, present with each other 100%, it makes us really good parents. And so that's sort of what I hope for you too, is that being there for each other and thriving for each other will help you thrive as parents a lot. You'll feel really good, and you'll feel like you're in sync, and that is really important. We did want to talk about sort of how we talk to each other.
Yes.
You were going to say something about that. Do you remember? About what we call each other?
Oh, I wasn't married until I was about 31, and I'd have friends that were married, and sometimes I'd hear them go, the wife. They would refer to their spouse as like a thing almost, like the wife, the other person, the this, the that. And I always thought that was like...
It's just not nice.
Yeah, I thought, well, I don't know. And I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but I always felt like that was about one step away from the old lady or the ball and chain.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that you really should think about, especially if you're struggling in your marriage right now or in your partnership, I really think you should think about how you refer to each other, how you talk to each other. what your interactions are like, how you refer to each other online, and keep that in a positive light, because part of this beta test, and I get the distinct feeling that we have some partners that are here kicking and screaming, and if that's you, then I need you to send us a message and say, I really don't want to be here, and let us know, and we'll remove you from the beta test. If you're here because you're not part of the beta test and you're just hanging out with Thrive, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you chose to do this for those reasons too. So, but if you're a partner and you're here because your partner wants you to be, rather than because you think that your marriage or your partnership could use work, then I think it's time to walk away. I think that that you need to be here because you really want to work on things. You really want, we want to help make struggling marriages good marriages. We want to make good marriages amazing marriages, and that comes from both of you working. Like, if I was only working on myself and Eric wasn't working on himself, we wouldn't be who we are. We wouldn't be the fun, good family that we are, because we wouldn't have that, we wouldn't have that connection.
And I think if both people don't want to be here, it might make things even worse. The process might.
Yeah, I do think it would make it worse. If you're here and you're not wanting to be here, let's just say it's apparent. It's apparent in the things that you say, and so I want you to really think about that, because we do want everybody to be here because they want to be here, not just because we wanted some help with some beta testing, and not just because we're good at what we do and we want to help you. We want you to be here because you want to be here, and this stuff works, and working on yourself works, but it's a hard road, and we won't lie to you. Working on yourself is the hardest thing you will ever do. And hopefully everybody that's listening is up for it and excited to be here. So I thought I made some notes, just sort of going through this weekend on the group and things that I wanted to talk about. And I thought I'd talk about a few things. One thing I thought we would talk about is sort of imbalance in temperament. And so when we say imbalance, that's when you're looking at the temperament wheel that's in the group, that's in the actual assignment, all of the negatives would be you when you're out of balance. So, one of the strong things about me as a cleric is I'm a good leader and I can get things done. But one of the negative things about me is I can be a bossy bitch. And so, and I cannot be nice. And so that would be me out of balance. And so, like, Eric out of balance, because some awesome things about the phlegmatic is they're very loyal, they're very steadfast, they're methodical. But
you can't be lazy.
You can't be lazy. I know, I get it. But out of balance could be laziness. It could be overthinking, like to a place that is detrimental to everybody around you, like taking too long to make a decision. And so when we have situations where we feel like we're getting ready to go out of balance, we have to talk about it. And I'll say, because I'm really good at saying, I know I'm being really bossy right now, I'm really sorry. And you have to love each other enough to be able to say, honey, you're taking too long to make a decision on buying a computer. I love you. Let's go get it done. That kind of thing. That wasn't something we had just not too long ago.
Yeah.
And so you have to sort of love each other enough to, but don't be mean about it. You have to be honest, but not be mean. And so the way that could look with a sanguine is that you cannot focus on anything. You're like, not even like a butterfly, because a butterfly kind of glides. A butterfly is nice and happy and glides. You're more like a wasp or a one of those big giant bugs. I had one on my hair the other day. A big June bug. Something that isn't beautiful, that doesn't glide. It's kind of ugly. So that would be sort of the negative side of the sanguine. So it's not a sort of flowing movement. It's something that's jerky and erratic and looks like you have ADD, which you might have ADD. And often, especially in children, ADD is misdiagnosed as somebody who's sanguine. And instead of working on balance, we get drugs for that. And that doesn't mean maybe you need drugs, and that's okay. And it's about sort of finding that balance there. But then for the melancholy, it could mean, like, unbalance would mean you're depressed all the time about everything. And I'm not just talking about you get weepy over something that's sweet or you have empathy. It means you can't function. It's extreme depression. And so those are sort of the temperaments out of balance. And so I've got my little list here. So sorry, I'm looking at the table. Causes for imbalance can come from a lot of things. They can come from food allergies. I think that's a huge one. And it will not, like a food allergy, like if you have leaky gut syndrome and you're not taking care of that, then you have, it can mask depression. It can make you angry. It can make all of these things, and that might not even be your temperament. So if you've got health issues that are going on, I think it's much harder to figure out what your temperament is.
You got a question?
Yeah. You say honest but not mean. Is there a way to approach a person of a certain temperament without avoiding coming across as mean? I think that you always, always, always say, honey, I love you. Can we talk about what just happened? I think that that's really the best way to approach it. Michael Brook, you were asking that question. I think that really when you're in the thick of it and you're angry, don't approach it then. Although I will say that if I've gone like off the rails and I haven't reined myself in, Eric will come and he'll just put his hand on my hand or on my shoulder and help to calm me down. And that helps a ton. But also, I think it's okay to say if you're out of control, if your partner's out of control, I think you have to have mechanisms in place before the fight. So these are conversations that you have when you're not fighting. You need to be able to say things like, I love you too much to fight with you. So I'm just going to walk away. And that's going to make some people, that's going to make clerics really mad. It's going to make melancholics really mad if you walk away in a fight. Really mad. So, to be able to talk about how how things are going and just be able to scoop up kids and walk away, or you just walk away. Maybe you just need to go for a walk down the street and then come back when you're calm. But when you do that, then as you're walking away, don't stew. Just walk away and take some deep breaths. And this takes practice, let me tell you. It takes a lot of practice, especially if you're choleric. It takes a lot of practice. I think because melancholies hang on to things so much, I think that will take a lot of practice for them too.
And then sometimes you just need to stop talking.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm saying that, but when I'm balanced, I'm more like a melancholic. Yes, because, a lot of people that are melancholy think that they are choleric, and they're not. It is very important to understand the difference between an unbalanced melancholy that's acting out sort of like a caged animal or an animal that's been backed into a corner, if you can kind of get that imagery. So it's very important to understand the difference between that and somebody that sort of commands all the time. And it commands, not demands. So there's a difference there for cholerics. So, commanding just means you know how to hold your space and you're comfortable in your own space. That doesn't mean you have to be yelling at people all the time, because people think, oh, that person that's yelling is choleric. Well, they might be out of balance choleric, but that doesn't mean that that's how they are when they're calm and when they're not out of balance. So I think that sort of knowing that you have these things going on, but Michael, yes, you said showing love first. Yes, it's totally the best. And you get mad when Luce walks away. Well, I think you have to examine why you're mad. I think you have to examine, okay, why am I angry that she's stepping back? Because one thing that I find really hard for myself as a cleric is, okay, let me back up. So when you're choleric, you spout off and then you're over it. It's generally, you don't hang on to stuff. Like cholerics, I couldn't tell you what happened yesterday because I don't hang on to it. It's just gone. But melancholies will hang on to it. So like my ex-husband, he would bring up something that I did like 2 years ago when we would have a fight. And so he's like keeping this catalog in his head all the time. Stop keeping the catalog. Just quit. You have to resolve things and move on and just sort of let that go. And that means you have to resolve it. So there has to be forgiveness on both sides, and there has to be a resolution to the conflict. And sometimes that resolution is, I messed up. And sometimes that resolution is, they messed up. And you can't beat them over the head with that. So I do think that melancholies tend to chase the argument. And so if they're getting really good at walking away, let them walk away. Because I think that's really important. I think it's really, one of the things that happens when melancholy sort of get out of balance and they go to a depressed place, it's because they're hanging on to a lot of stuff. And so they tend to, and not always, but they tend to sort of relive things in their head. And I think all temperaments can do that to a degree. I think that the phlegmatic can do that too, because you think a lot. They can tend to overthink things and stress out about stuff. And so if you have a partner that's phlegmatic, I think the best thing you could do to support them is help them have confidence. Because the only times that you overthink things is when you're having a dip in your confidence. That's what I notice, is when you're like not so sure about yourself. And so really it's about sort of keeping that confidence. Well,
and one thing that's hard is it's really helpful to work on developing humility.
Oh, yes.
Because there's times where one of us can tell the other one something that they really don't want to hear, but you know, like, that they're right. And so then you know that you really ought not, like...
There used to be this song that my
It's
parents
okay to have
like.
a different opinion, but if someone's saying something that you know is right, but you don't like it...
Right.
Then you have to figure out a way to come to grips with that.
You guys should Google this song, especially if you have fights in your house because of humility issues. There's a song that my parents used to, it's like from their era. So I'm old, but they're way old. And it was called, Oh Lord, It's Hard to Be Humble. And so the first two lines are, Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. Yeah. So it's about like understanding that. Can you cut out, you say who needs help? Oh, so often it's the phlegmatic that needs help with confidence. I mean, actually, so I would say phlegmatic and the melancholy often need help with confidence in different ways and in different situations, for sure. But the only time that I see Eric really doubt himself is when he has a dip of confidence, and that can happen for a number of reasons. And we're going to talk about sort of some spiritual stuff later in the program, but sort of keeping yourself grounded is super helpful. And so if you're in a situation where you're continually not grounded, so, maybe you're working 14, 16 hours a day and you don't have time to get grounded, you have to find 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes if you can, to get grounded. And make it a priority, because when it's not a priority, then that's when things fall apart and it gets worse. And so let's talk some more about things that cause imbalance. And knowing what your triggers are. So I think that's a really important one, like understanding triggers. Sometimes
one of my triggers is if we end up having to go to a drive-thru with the kids.
He gets overwhelmed.
I get nervous because it's like, I don't know what I want. Maybe this or that. Or can I get the burrito with no beans in it? And,
that's my 15-year-old daughter.
And
I go, dear,
and there's
can you not do that to
people
your dad?
behind me, and people are like, well, why can't this happen? And do they? I mean, this isn't what happens, but like, can I get a Whopper at McDonald's type of thing?
Right. No, we don't eat there.
No, we don't eat there.
Yes, a Whopper at McDonald's.
That's a bad
I got
example,
you, because that's not right. Yes.
But,
no, I think that understanding triggers is huge. So, like, for Eric, it's situations where he's going to be overwhelmed generally by people talking to him all at once. Like, this man, I know I extol his virtues to the women I work with all the time. He takes all the children, which right now is only 3, but it used to be 5, and he took all of them to 1 day a week so that I could work on our other business. And so how he does it without like coming home without hair falling out, I don't know. But this right here, this bench right down, that's all our children, all that gray.
Some of that happened overnight.
Yes, like overnight at a camping trip.
I came back and it was there.
Yeah. So I think that understanding your triggers. So for me, as a choleric, my triggers are untidy space or cluttered space or disorganization.
I'm gonna run up and
are you
see
gonna go
what that's
listen to
all about.
that?
I'll be right
We
back.
have a wee one that would like us to be done, and so we're about done. I think that that when you understand your trigger, and so I would think about that. I would think about that for the next few days. What things, when you feel yourself getting really mad or angry at your partner or at anybody, what is that? Usually triggers tend to be things that happen within the home. So for me, like I said, it's a mess, and I have a space that I can tolerate. And then once I hit the edge, Eric knows. He's like, "Oh dear, she's there. We all need to fix it." So for me, it's that. But it's probably not that for everybody. Different cholerics are going to have different situations and different struggles for different times. So knowing what your trigger is super important, because then you can communicate that trigger. So Eric knows that that's a trigger for me. And if I say, things are starting to look a little messy, he knows that that's my warning that the trigger is starting to come out. So sort of understanding that is I think super important. And so for him, I know that he can get overwhelmed. Phlegmatics they're super methodical, and he does really good, but having too many things going on, it overwhelms him. So I want you to think about that. For the sanguine, it's going to be different for everybody. So and for the melancholy, they just you tend to shut down, or you tend to really have the negative parts of your temperament come out. And so that's how you know, hey, I'm out of balance. So like for me, I'll go, okay, I've yelled way too much today. What the heck is going on with me? And I don't go, what's going on with everybody else? I don't go, man, these kids are out of control today. Man, he's pissing me off. No, I look at myself first. The best thing you can do when you think everybody is sort of going crazy and you don't have anything going on is look in the mirror and say, what have I done today? And I do think that's easier in general for women to do than it is for men to do in general, but I've seen amazing things happen from men that are like ready to face it, and they're ready to go, all right, I have this struggle. And that doesn't mean they're going to get all like wordy with us ladies, because often men aren't going to be in that emotional place that we are, and that's okay. That we have different strengths, and that we have to honor those different strengths. But being able to sort of know what your triggers are, and so dads, I want you to think about that. I want you to think about what your triggers are, and I want you to let your wife know or your partner know. I want you to say, this is a trigger for me. I find myself getting angry when blank, and that's how you know it's a trigger for you. And sometimes our triggers are completely irrational. And when they're irrational, then we have to step back and we have to go, why is this a trigger for me? Why does this make me mad? And sort of wrestle that to the ground. Because maybe it's something that, I worked with a couple once, and he would get really angry when he came home and the house was a mess. And she had 5 kids, and she was trying to keep it all under control all day long, and then he'd come home and be angry when she really just needed him to come home and help. And really the honesty in that is that he really had situations at home as a child where his mother was super disorganized, and it made him feel really horrible. And so that's where he was. And so when she understood that, then she could work from that place. So, but if you don't understand the trigger and you're just upset at people, then the people around you can't sort of help you with that. So understanding the trigger is really a huge thing. So I'm just looking at the comments here. Messes are hard for me too. Also anxiety over traveling, getting there, getting grounded, getting settled. You have, Nicole, you guys have a good brood like we do. So I totally understand anxiety over travel. And so it's just, for me, the best thing I could do is plan it, and then you go, all right, but crap can happen with the plan. But I know you, and I know you're fairly good at that. So let's see. It says see more, so I'm going to push this. Oh, there we go. I tend to shut myself off to others. My anger is imbalanced. Yep. So when you find yourself going there, I think it's just really important to stop yourself, and that takes a lot of practice. I think it takes a lot of practice, and I think that's one thing that we're really trying to teach our kids is how to, stop yourself, and they will not be able to do it before they're teenagers, and even then, it is going to be, a struggle for them for a while. Like I think Harry was just really starting to get it before he left home.
Yeah.
And he didn't always get it. But I think that once they've reached this, at about 15, they can really, really stop themselves and see when their temperaments are sort of going out of balance. So let me see questions. You mentioned there's some things that can really throw temperaments off balance. We've identified what those things are in our relationship. What are some things we could do or words we can say to reclaim balance? So I think, like I said a little bit earlier, I think that the best thing is to then, after you know your trigger, then to step back and go, what makes me feel better for my trigger? So if my trigger is a mess, then I have to stop yelling and just look at people and say, come on, y'all, you're going to help me clean this up. I didn't make this mess. Y'all made this mess. We're cleaning it up. But I can do that in a way that's loving, or I can do that in a way that's like screaming at people, and I don't like to do that. And because he knows it's a trigger of mine, he's like, let's go, people. Come on. And he cracks the whip and Autobots transform and roll out.
Well, there's times where I see that there's a mess that's been going on for a while, and I say, I'm sorry this is a mess, but you know that I have not had 5 minutes
Absolutely.
to do anything about
Absolutely.
it. Absolutely.
Right? And I think that helps. I think that helps a ton, because it helps him know, hey, and it helps me that he's acknowledging that that's a trigger of mine.
And if I say, I understand that this is a problem, but we both understand that I have not had time to do anything.
Yes, it's absolutely huge. It's huge when you can acknowledge to the other person, hey, I know this is a trigger for you. So then working to reclaim that is usually action. So like for him, when he's overwhelmed, the best thing I could do, like in the drive-through situation at El Pollo Loco, is say, as we're getting to the driveway of the drive-through, y'all better know what you want to eat, because if you don't, your dad's ordering for you. Period. And so they know. And so they never change their selection, because they know if they do, he will just buy whatever he thinks they should eat. So, and it's getting easier. You do that a few times and your kids are like, crap, he's serious. But you got to stick to your guns. And so, that's one way.
Well, I remember I flipped out one day at the drive-thru because we were trying to move from Idaho to Utah, and we had told the landlord we were moving, and then this woman who wanted to move into our house kept showing up at our house, and
she's freaking out.
We didn't even have a place to move to yet, and she would stand at the door and look around.
No, she really wanted our house really bad.
And then I was stressed because it's like they're already trying to rent the house and we don't have a place to live, and then we went through the drive-thru and everybody's like, I don't know, and then I went blah.
Yes, I remember. So, and that's just a stressful situation overall. So I think you have to look at your triggers, and when you're getting ready to go into something stressful like moving, or your in-laws are coming, or you've got stuff like that coming up, then you have to be hyper aware. You guys just have to be grown-ups. You have to be grown-ups and say, I am hyper aware of the fact that this is my trigger and it's going to be a problem. So let's see here.
Trying to get the rest of that.
I don't think that. Oh wait. There we go. Oh, she hit enter too soon.
Okay, 14.
I know.
So we're good for a little bit.
We're probably good.
I just wanted to make sure it didn't turn off on us. No. We weren't prepared to use this device.
No, our phones were being wacky this morning. Okay, so she says, Nicole says she was spanked as a child, slapped on the legs, hit fly swatter. I'm so sorry. Wooden spoon. I remember that one. Belts. I remember the belt too. I tend to yell instead of spanking. You know what? I do too. I do too. And I yell a lot less in the last 10 years than I did in the first 10 years of my parenting, because I am more grounded. And the more grounded you get, and the more you understand your triggers, and the more you are able to sort of plan in your parenting and be in that place and realizing, okay, what helps me not yell? And then you go, okay, this is what helps me not yell. Because generally, I'm just going to say this, and I say this a lot to my homeschooling parents, kids do the same things every day, always. You are the one who's facing it in a different place. So if you are facing it from a really grouchy place, that doesn't mean that kids don't have off days. Everybody has off days. And we've got kids with special needs. So, we have our youngest has SVD. Our oldest has autism. But he's an adult and he's out of the house. But there were days when it was extremely overwhelming to be a parent of special needs, and there are still days that are like that with our youngest sometimes. And so those are days that you really have to work together, and you really have to be on it, and you really have to ask yourself, why am I yelling? Because here's what I know: they're not going to hear you anymore if you're yelling, unless it's like a, hey, get out of that ditch. That they'll hear. But when you're yelling at them in their face, and I have been the bad yelling parent, like in somebody's face yelling, does not make them move any faster, especially if they're phlegmatic. They're just going to shut down. Or they're going to try to get back to their comfort place as fast as possible. And that's one thing that I think is really hard. If you're choleric and you want them to do certain things, don't yell at them. Just don't. Because they'll either start to cry and then you feel like a really piece of crap parent. So don't yell. Or figure out why you're yelling. Are you yelling because you asked them to do something 3 times and it wasn't done? So then my question is, did you follow through on what you asked them to do? I cannot get angry if I told the 5-year-old and the 10-year-old to go clean their room 20 minutes ago and I didn't check in on them 5 minutes after I told them to do that. I can't get angry at that because they're 5 and 10. Now, if they're 15, then I can say, still not yelling, because our daughter is sanguine melancholy, and yelling at her makes her shut down. It makes the melancholy in her come out and makes her fight, and then she shuts down and she doesn't want to talk to anybody for like a day. So it's rare, since I figured that out about my parenting with her, it's rare that we actually yell at her. I might raise my voice and say, listen, I do not want to have to yell at you. And she'll go, oh, that's my cue. I need to knock off whatever it is that I'm doing. But, sort of knowing why you're yelling, I think is huge. And, yes, there is a Facebook group called Waldorf Yeller Reform that we created a few years ago. It's kind of quiet, but it's funny. Nobody's yelling over there. But I do think that when you can understand why you're yelling, and sometimes you just have to stop yourself. And, I've looked really stupid before, but probably not stupid to my kids, because I'll stop myself mid-sentence and say, lady, what are you doing? Shut up. Just stop it. Shut your mouth. and then I've gone to yell, had to put my hand over my mouth, and just hold on to it. So look at why you're yelling. Look at the things that are your triggers for yelling. And definitely I do parent differently for each kid when it comes to temperament. Also, if you've got kids with special needs, kids on autism spectrum, autism kids are black and white kids. They need clear instruction. I can remember one time Harry was, he was probably 8. And I was raving lunatic, screaming, yelling at him because I was so mad at him. And I remember him looking at me. And this is after I'd been yelling for probably 5 minutes. And he looked at me and he said, Mom, are you mad? And I remember thinking, are you kidding me? Why are you asking me that? But because they can't understand what's going on in your face. So yelling at a kid with autism, it's like you may as well be yelling at yourself. So it's figuring out where that balance is and understanding. But one thing that I had to be really with our special needs kids is because they are so black and white, you have to be willing to follow up on every command for a long time. Everything that you say for them to do, you have to be willing to follow up on. Because if you're not, you will find yourself trying to resort to spanking or yelling. so you just have to decide. I had to follow up on this. As a parent, you cannot ever say, go do this, and just expect it's going to be done for a long time, like not until they're teenagers. So don't expect that of your 8-year-old or your 9-year-old. You can expect like one sentence commands: put on your shoes. That doesn't mean they're not capable of putting on their shoes, putting on their coat, and walking to the car, but it does mean that you have to be willing to sort of step in there. That's not coddling them, but you've got to be in there in a calm place. Come on, put on your shoes. Let's get your fanny to the car, and just get yourself moving. And so really trying to figure out where it is that you're yelling and why, what your expectations are of this child. I can't expect my 5-year-old to put on her shoes, put on her coat, and walk to the car. It's just not going to happen. So she might do a dance and forget that she's supposed to put her shoes on. So if I get angry, that doesn't serve me, and it does not a lesson for her. So figuring out why you're yelling at your kids, I think, is important. And that's like a whole hour's talk in itself. But really what I want to focus on is, if you're yelling at your partner, why are you yelling at your partner? You guys got to figure it out. You're the grown-ups. You have stewardship over these children. And that means that they are watching every move you make. So every time you fight in front of your kids, guess what? They are cataloging that. They know it. So when I asked my big kids for my first marriage, what things do you remember about when I was married to your dad? Guess what they say? We remember the fights. They don't say we remember fun times as a family. I don't even remember those, but they remember the fights. They remember the fights. They remember the issues. They remember the struggles. And what stopped me cold, what made me realize, hey, I either need to get out of this marriage or we have to have a separation, was when my youngest child went to my oldest child, who was at the time 7, for comfort because we were having a fight. You have to watch what you're doing in front of your kids. It affects them deeply. It will affect how they grow up. It will affect the kind of relationships they have. So if you're in a situation where you are fighting constantly with your partner, then you need to ask yourself, when you're fighting in front of your 5-year-old daughter, what kind of husband do I want her to pick? And that's like a really hard thing to think about. She's going to pick somebody like her dad. So if you want her to pick somebody like her dad, and if you're the dad and you're the one that's fighting, step back and say, do I want her to pick somebody like me? We want our kids to grow up and have really healthy relationships. We don't want them to make the same relationship mistakes that we've made. So we really have to own it, you know? We have to be humble enough to say, I screwed up. And then when we screw up in front of our kids, you have to be humble together enough to go say, Dad and I are really sorry that we fought in front of you. That wasn't right. We never fight in front of our kids. We actually never fight.
We disagree.
We disagree.
And sometimes
we disagree, and sometimes it gets heated and we have to walk away. But yeah. Anyway, so let's see. I wanted to make sure we are 11% on this tablet, so I think we're okay. I wanted to talk again really quick, and this is sort of goes to imbalance. Addictions, food issues, and depression can sort of alter what you're thinking about with temperament. So if you're struggling with any of those things, it's good to help you get out of those places before you can really get a good, clear picture of your temperament. Sleep will mess with your temperament. Like, sleep makes me the negative person. Like if I don't have enough of it. And different temperaments, I think, can handle different amounts of sleep. Like, I'm choleric. 8 is great. I never get 8. 7 is better. 7, I tend to work really well. I can do 6 and 5 for about 2 days, and then I'm not a nice person. So you have to, as a partnership, really go, she's not had enough sleep. I think I need to make sure she gets a nap today.
Yeah.
Or if Eric's had a rough night, maybe he's been up with a kid, or maybe he's not felt good at night, I'll say he needs more sleep. And so you have to sort of look at that together. And I know that's really hard when maybe dad's working a lot of hours and you're coming home and you're just exhausted. You got to help her get some sleep because she's with those kids all day long. And if she's not getting enough sleep, she's not going to, let's just put it plain and simple. If she's not getting enough sleep, you're not going to get any sex. Plain and simple. And I know we weren't going to talk about that for a while, but when you're not rested and when you are the worst parts of your temperament, you're not feeling in the mood for anything. So if you want to have, overall good life, you want to make sure that both of you are rested and that you're tending to each other's needs. And that means that that the husband or the wife can say, honey, I'm really struggling with this. And you can say, what can I do to help? Because I tell you what, the sexiest words that this man can say are, what can I do to help? Super sexy words. I'm like all on it then. I'm like, this is what you can do to help. Thank you so much.
Well, and then when we discovered that I had sleep apnea,
that
was a huge light bulb.
It was a huge light bulb. It was a huge light bulb because I would get frustrated because he couldn't stay awake for anything. But wow.
And once we took care of it, I was fine. But once that was going on, so that might not be what's going on, but it's something to look at.
Oh, absolutely. I think that when you're sort of trying to figure out what your health situation is, do not leave any stone unturned. You really want to work on sort of figuring that out. So I hope that we have been, I hope that we've been helpful today. I think, somebody asked too on the list about moodiness. Like, what do you do when you're moody and you know you're moody? Like, how do you get out of it? So different temperaments, it's going to be different. Do not ever, ever, ever try to cheer up in melancholy. It will just piss them off.
That doesn't work.
Don't do it. The best thing you could do...
And if they're unhealthy melancholy, they could lash out at you.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I even know people that they go to that place and it's like, I am not going to even touch that. I'm going to walk away because I could be in the middle. I could get it back at me and I don't want it.
One of the best things that I think, so as you're sort of feeling into your temperament, different temperaments are fed and nourished by different things. Our daughter is a sanguine melancholy. When she was younger, like she's 15 and a half, when she was 9, she was very melancholy, a little bit sanguine. When she was younger, she was very sanguine. So, but the best thing I can do for Ellie is make sure that she gets a good dose of sappy movies on a regular basis. Like ones where sad crap happens.
People have cancer and...
Oh my gosh! What was that movie, Me Before You, that she was like, Mom, you gotta go with me to see this. So I go with her to see it, and it's, of course, like a really good movie, but super sad. And then she's listening to sad music the whole way home. I said, it ain't happening. If you want me to not wreck this car, we are listening to Shakira or something else that makes me not want to run this car off the road because you have to know. And she's like, okay, because she knows I can't handle it. She knows that I can handle so much sadness and sap. And then I got to get out of there because I don't like the way that feels. But for her, it totally nourishes the melancholy to read sad books, to watch sad movies. So if you feel yourself going to that moody place, you need to step back and go, all right, what's going to get me out of this mood? Sometimes, because it happens, there's like all kinds of things that happen. And if you watch the news, stop it. Just stop it. Stop watching the news. We stopped watching the news a long time ago. The internet will tell us anything we need to know. And if not, then somebody on Facebook is going to say about something so horrible, and I'll be like, all right, fine, I'll go find out what happened. I don't need to know the local news. I don't need to know all of that. So, and you don't need to know all that. I promise. You think you do, and you think that we're crazy, weird people for living under a rock, but I promise, stop watching the news. Just quit. It is extremely liberating. And if you're watching crazy stuff like we used to watch Law & Order all the time. I loved it because I was a law student when I was in college. I loved it. And there's like enough Law & Order that you could watch Law & Order like all day long, every day for probably 5 years and not get to the end of it because there's so much Law & Order. You have to stop. I walked away from it. Oh, my perspective on everything got so much cheerier and brighter. So quit it. If you want to watch something crazy like that, and watch Prison Break. That's something I'm a little hooked on right now. Or do fun stuff together. I mean, next week when we come to you live, we are going to be coming to you live from San Diego Comic-Con. And we're going to talk a little bit about like what you do for each other and sort of healthy relationships and give and take and how you can have fun even if you're playing in his world. So Eric's world is, what's on your shirt today? Oh, Dads, you like this shirt? All kinds of ships. But guess what? I purchased that shirt for him because I knew he would like it. And because I get all, so like once you're like, you figure out what, you know what you like, I watch the movies and stuff with him because I'm like, I want to know that person's temperament. So we'll be sitting there watching a movie, walk out of a movie, and I'll go, that person was so phlegmatic, and he'll just start laughing, and we'll just have a good time talking about something that really interests me in respect to a movie that we just watched. So like really working to do things that you love about each other. And conversely, this man could sit in the comfy chair in the yarn shop all day long, and he would do it and just be all happy. Give him his phone, he'd be sitting there reading. Yeah, so it's about things that you do for each other. So we're going to talk about that next week when we come to you live from Comic-Con. And anyway, so we're gonna close today. I hope this was helpful. If you're watching on the replay and there was something that we did not cover that you really wish that we had, no, Darth Vader is not a choleric. He is an unbalanced melancholy. Think about his life. Think about his mother. And think about how whiny he was in the prequels. He is an unbalanced melancholy. Super unbalanced. Obi-Wan Kenobi, balanced choleric. Super balanced. Super balanced. Like he's in command. Yeah. Yoda, balanced choleric. Totally knows how to get crap done. So, anyway.
Soraya's.
All right, so we are getting the call from our 5-year-old who would like some snuggles. So I am going to go, and we're going to go. I hope you guys got some good stuff answered. And if you have more questions, like I said, please keep reading, Michael. Keep reading. And Spider-Man, choleric, or melancholy. Yeah. Iron Man, unbalanced choleric. I'm trying to think. Ant-Man, phlegmatic. Rocket, unbalanced choleric. Maybe melancholy. Maybe. Anyway, so I could go on, but anyway. So I hope you all have a great day, and I hope you're having fun with this. Don't take yourself so seriously. Have a good time and quit fighting in front of your kids and in general, and sort of examine yourself, and don't be afraid to laugh. I mean, have a good time. You got together with this person for a reason, so remember why you got together.
We need
have a good time.
Is the ultimate phlegmatic.
Oh my gosh. And Piglet, melancholy. Anyway, love you. Oh, the Hulk. I know that was hard because
there's some psychological things going on.
He was like injected with stuff. So I think in general, Bruce Banner in the new movies is probably melancholy. He's not very Bruce Banner as the Hulk, choleric, obviously, but Bruce Banner, if you sort of watch the way he interacts with the rest of the team and the Avengers, he's like a super sweet guy. It's just when people piss him off that which is pretty much, the unhealthy, raging melancholy. So maybe that's the answer for him. Hadn't actually thought about Bruce Banner before. So, Eeyore, yeah. So sad. So sad. Yeah, Eeyore, yep, melancholy. So anyway, I hope you all have a great day.
Yep.
Talk to you later.
See you
Bye
later.
now.
Bye.